Good gracious, I have a story for you. So real quick, I'd like to apologize in advance. I would record this on my phone with a little higher quality, but it's being difficult and being full of storage right now and refuses to let me empty storage, so we're just going to move on with this in the little low quality and the kind of light fixturings and the slow frame rate, but it's whatever. Anyways, I've got a story for you. Contrary to popular belief, I am an adult. And as an adult, I can do a special little thing called traveling alone. It's something that I have rarely done yet. This little stint I went on, however, I was completely on my own. While I had my set things to do in the place I was staying, getting there and everything in between was all to me. As many of you don't know, I, over the weekend, went on a little trip to Kentucky on a little weekend trip to go to a men's conference at the Ark Encounter. And in doing so, I was going alone, driving. This was the first time I would ever make a road trip by myself. I have driven a few road trips now, but they've always been with at least one other person. I drove to and from college last Thanksgiving with my brother and his wife. And last fall, I went to Minnesota to go to a Renaissance fair with my little sister and Avery. This trip, however, was to Williamstown, Kentucky, which is 11 hours away, and I would be doing that by myself, as previously stated. Anyways, now, it gets to a certain point as an adult where you're able to make these trips. You don't really think about it. You go, you get there, you do your thing, and you drive back. No problems. This was not one of those scenarios, so sit back, relax, and let me tell you about the time I nearly died twice. This is a bit of a hyperbole. I didn't actually almost die twice, but it makes it sound more gripping. Alright, so to preface, before I made this trip, I've got a few things to tell you. I drive a 2014 Honda Civic. It's a nice little car, works well, but there's also a thing. I drive this Honda Civic in Nebraska. Now, the funny thing about Nebraska is we have a lot of gravel roads, and gravel roads are not very nice on tires. They pretty much shorten the lifespan of a tire by about 2 years. That's not probably true at all, but they shorten the life a bit. The gravel's rough on the tires, and there's some other things, little surprises waiting for your tires when you drive over them, like I ran into. That's a screw in my tire. So this happened over the previous weekend, same weekend I live streamed, actually. It happened the same day I live streamed Toy Story 3. So that was fun. I went to lunch that day with my grandparents. Went to a good old lunch at Outback Steakhouse. I went out to my car afterwards and found my tire completely flat with a screw in it. Don't know how it happened, but it did. So what I did was I drove it to an air pump, pumped it up, got it home, swapped it out for another car, borrowed from my grandparents, and we said goodbye to it for the weekend because we already had a tire appointment for it first thing Monday morning, as it needed new front tires anyways. They were really old and I was doing this trip. So couldn't have been better timing, right? So the weekend happens, I get the car in, they replace the tires, I get a brand new one, all good to go. Nothing to worry about. Brand new tires on them, my back tires are still pretty new, nothing to worry about. So the plan was I would work a shift on Thursday and then leave immediately after to drive the 11 hours straight through to Williamstown, Kentucky. The thing is, I get done at work at 1 p.m. Williamstown, Kentucky is 11 hours away. Because of that, figuring math, there's a time change in there, I'd be getting in at around 1 a.m. Kentucky time. That doesn't factor in stops, which I made. With all of that in, I'd be getting in around 2 a.m. That was the plan. So Thursday came along, I worked my shift, and I hit the road. Everything went smoothly. I made it through, made about 2 stops to fill up gas and grab food, and I made it in at about 1:50 a.m. No biggie. I was exhausted, tired, I went to bed, excited for my conference the next morning. The next morning, I wake up. It's freezing cold. It is frigid. And the little thing about my Airbnb, it was not insulated. It was basically a cabin formed out of a Conex box. It was really cute and nice, but it didn't have much insulation, so the cold air got in. So I wake up, I'm freezing, I'm shivering, I'm shaking, I shower, I get changed, and I stumble out to my car, I get in, and I hit the road. Now, it's about 7:45 in the morning since the conference started at 9, but the doors open at 8, and you got to ride a shuttle bus up to the actual location where it's at, so I wanted to give myself plenty of time to do all that. Since I also traveled in, I didn't have any food or coffee, two things I really enjoy in the morning. So I look at my little map, and I notice it's about a 30-minute drive through country roads until I get to a little town called Dry Ridge, Kentucky, before I take the interstate down to the Arc. And I'm looking at my little map there, seeing, oh, in Dry Ridge, there's a McDonald's. They have breakfast, they have coffee, the two things I enjoy in the morning. So I hit the road, I'm cruising, doing fine, and I drive the 20 minutes through the backcountry roads, and I get to Dry Ridge. Now I'm pulling up to the exit where the McDonald's is, when all of a sudden, like a phantom in the night, I feel a jolt, a shake, I didn't know what it was. I thought maybe I just hit a rock, I hit something, but it caused the car to kind of bump up, and it made a little boom noise. So I'm like, that's odd. Good thing I'm right here at this McDonald's. I'll just check to make sure everything's fine. So I pull into the McDonald's, I go through the drive-thru, and as I'm pulling up to the window in the drive-thru, I notice what sounds like a scraping sound. It's like every time I move. My mind instantly goes to worst case scenario. My tire might be flat. So I get my food, I pull around, I pull right into a parking spot. I get out, expecting the worst, to see a flat tire, and to my utter astonishment, that's exactly what I found, a completely flat tire. I would put a picture right here because I thought I took one, but apparently I didn't. It was very, very flat. Now keep in mind, this tire is about 5 days old at this point. I got them brand new Monday, and this is Friday. So I'm already freaking out a little bit. It's technically not my car. I'm just the only one that drives it right now, but it technically still belongs to my family because I still live here. I'm still a dependent. But it's technically not my car. The brand new tires, and I have a conference to get to in about, at this point, 45 minutes. So I go into not panic mode, but I need to do something. So I do the only sane thing a young adult would do, and I call my dad. He graciously just says I need to see if I can get a car jack out of the trunk to put the donut spare tire that I had on in order to get it to a tire place to get the tire fixed. I'm like, okay. And I open up my trunk. I see the handle for the car jack, but no car jack. Then I recall that not too long ago we had taken it out to do some service on the car, and I don't think we ever put it back in. So I am one car jack down, stranded at a McDonald's in Dry Ridge, Kentucky. So then he says, go inside and see if you can find anybody that might have a spare one they'll let you use, put it on. I'm freaking out. I don't like talking to strangers. I know I shouldn't because they're people and they're not scary, but you know, I'm still scared of talking to strangers and asking them for help. But I put on my big boy pants, I walk inside, and I ask the manager if they would know anybody that might have a car jack. She asks around. I feel like an invasive person needing help because I'm just like, I'm bothering everybody, but sorry. She comes to me and says that nobody has a car jack, but I might want to talk to one of those guys, and she points to a group of gentlemen sitting in the eating area. Says one of them probably does, especially that guy. He works on cars, so I'm like, cool, great, this will be fine. I awkwardly approach the men and I say, excuse me, would any of you happen to have a car jack on you? They kind of look at me like, what's a car jack? Come to find out, I call it a car jack. I don't think that's what it's called. I'm pretty sure carjacking is the act of like stealing a car. Hang on, okay, just for a sec, I'm gonna Google what it's called. Car jack. It's a floor jack or a scissor jack, essentially. That's what I needed. I kept calling it a car jack. I'm pretty sure they thought I was asking them to steal a car. Maybe that's why none of them could help me. Anyways, finally, I find one gentleman that says he might have one in his truck. So we go out, and he opens up the back, and there's a like a infant's car seat in there. He says, I gotta get the granddaughter's car seat out in order to get to it. And I'm like, oh my goodness, this man is like taking out a whole car seat just to see if he has a car jack for me to use. I felt so bad. I'm like, you don't need to do this. It's fine. But I mean, he's wrestling with it. He's like, I'm like, oh, I feel so bad. It's the morning. He's just trying to enjoy his breakfast, and some kid comes up to him and is like, hey, do you have a car jack? So he wrestles out, looks, he's like, oh, I'm sorry, this one's meant for a truck. This is gonna be too big for your car. And I'm like, that's okay. Thank you for even trying. He's like, yep. And he puts it back, goes back inside. At this point, I'm stressing out. I'm like, I've bothered people trying to enjoy their breakfast. I have no car jack still, and what am I gonna do? So the only result I have is to call a tow company. So I call one up. They send out a truck. I wheel it over to a place that they can get it on the truck. And the guy says, all right, there's a Walmart right there, and there's a car fixed place right there. I'd recommend going there because the Walmart people are always rough with like where you can drop your car and stuff, and it's always asked. I'm like, yeah, cool, we can go right there. So we hop in, we drive over to there, and he drops the card, and he's like, all right, cash or card? I'm like, oh, I got card. He's like, card, cool. He opens the bill. It's $100. Now, I know a lot of tow companies have like a base tow price, no matter how far it is, and that's usually about $100. I was towed 0.03 miles. I was towed about 4 blocks. I'm not upset at the price. I mean, obviously, it makes sense that there's a base price. I'm more upset at myself that I didn't find out sooner that there was actually a Walmart in walking distance that I could have bought a car jack at, but yeah, that's on me. So I pay it, whatever, send him on his way. I'm now $100 shorter and still a flat tire, but I'm at the car place. So I go in and I talk to the person at the desk. I explain. He's like, yeah, we'll take a look at it, see what happens. I'm like, do you think you could see if you see like a rock or something in it, like where the gash is, see if you can figure it? It's like, oh yeah, we'll take a look and see what caused the problem, and we'll get you fixed up. And I'm like, great. Do you have any idea roughly how long that'll take? Just so he's like, yeah, it'll probably take about 45 minutes to an hour and a half. I'm like, okay. He's like, have you had breakfast yet? I'm like, no. He's like, well, there's this place, that place, that place. He points out a few places. I settle on walking about quarter of a mile to a Cracker Barrel. So I go in, I sit down at the Cracker Barrel, have myself a nice breakfast. It's going good. I get a call from the people. About an hour later, they say the car is all fixed up. At this point, the conference has started, so I'm already missing the first speaker a bit. But, you know, what can you do at this point? So I go over. They fixed it up. They're like, yeah, we couldn't tell where what caused it. How old are these tires? I'm like, well, they're under a week old. He's like, well, your other new tire has a low tire pressure too. So what could have happened is something with the temperature and with the low tire pressure. It might have just burst. It might have just burst. Just spontaneously. Brand new tires. That's great to know. I'm so glad that tires can just do that. So I'm like, okay, you know, whatever. It's fixed now. And I'm like, all right, here's the card. And I go and I look and it's $180. That makes sense. It's a new tire, but it's like, ugh. So I pay up about roughly with the breakfast included about $300 down at this point. That's fine. Brand new tires, brand new tire. Totally fine. The other one's like aired up again. I hit the road. I drive like the 3 miles to the conference center. I go to the conference all day. It's a great time. No biggie. I saw the boat. That's a big boat. And then I leave at it's about almost 8 o'clock at this point. I'm leaving the park. I get out to the parking lot. I walk to my car and I'm like, just because I'm a little paranoid, I'm gonna do a little inspection on my tires, make sure they're all looking fine. I look and lo and behold, the brand new tire they put on that morning is flat. I'm like, what in the world is going on? Why is this brand new tire flat already? So I go into a panic because I'm at a park with no help in sight, with a flat tire, no car jack, and the parking lot's almost empty because the only people left were like the other people that went to the conference too. They're all getting in their cars and going their separate ways. So the park area is almost empty. I'm like, am I going to have to get an Uber? Am I going to have to just leave my car here? What am I going to do? So I go to my Google Maps. And I'm like, okay, where's the nearest gas station? I look, and right outside the park exit, just down the road, just a few, just a few feet, is a gas station. I'm like, okay, if I can make it there, maybe there's an air pump. So I just roll through out of the park, down the road. I pull into the gas station, and there's an air pump. So I'm like, oh, thank goodness. It's one of those pay for air. It's not the free air, which free air is nice and all, but a lot of places you pay for it. So I pay for it. I start airing up the tire because I'm like, it's not bursted, right? And fortunately it wasn't, because it started taking air and holding it. And I'm calling my dad up, and I'm like, okay, the brand new tire I just got on is flat already. He's like, what in the world? So he's like, okay, hurry back to the car place, see if they're still open and you can get it in. If not, go to the Walmart that's now there, that we have now established is there, see if their car place is open. So I air it up, race back to Dry Ridge, go to the car place. It's closed for the night. I'm like, okay. So then I go over to the Walmart, and I walk in, and I ask the greeter, I'm like, hi, you wouldn't happen to know if the car maintenance area is still open? She's like, it's not open for maintenance, but I'm pretty sure you can buy like tires or parts if you need. I'm like, oh, okay, yeah. And I'm like, I don't really know what I'm looking for, and I don't want to get the wrong thing. And she's like, well, what's going on? And I tell her the whole story of what's kind of going on and where I'm at. And I said, and she looks at me, she goes, where'd you go for your tire fixing? And I go, oh, it's that car place right up there. She goes, oh, last time I went to that place, they killed my car. I will never go there and again. And I just kind of look at her and I go, oh, thank you. Good to know. So yeah, the place I got my brand new tire from apparently has a bit of a record for killing cars. So I'm like, well, thank you for that. And I go back and I'm like, okay, I'm going to buy a car jack now because I can. So I go back, I buy one, and I get it. And I also buy a pressure gauge for my car because I thought I had one, but I had also taken that out and not put it back in my car. So I didn't know what pressure my tires were at, which is also very important. So I get all that. I check out and I go back to the greeter, and I'm like, I'm going to see if I might need to stay in town because I need to be close by to one of these places in the morning because my tire's leaking air. And she's like, oh, yeah. And she goes, avoid the Red Roof Inn. Remember that. And I'm like, okay, thank you. So I go out, I call my dad, explain. He's like, yeah, see if you can get a hotel because you don't want to drive 20 miles on a country road staying out overnight with a tire that's leaking air, because if it's flat out there in the middle of nowhere, where my Airbnb was, it was in the middle of the country, then, you know, you're sunk because you've got a flat in the middle of nowhere. I also, with the donut, I didn't want to risk driving like 20 miles back and forth on a donut tire that's not meant for that. Those are just meant to get you a few miles to a service station. So I'm like, okay, so I look around and I see 4 hotels. I go to the first 2. The first one has a sign on it that says, sorry, no vacancy. I'm like, uh-oh, okay. I walk over to the one right next to it. I walk in, I'm like, hey, question, you wouldn't happen to have any rooms available, would you? And she's like, oh, no, sorry, we're out of vacancy. I'm like, oh, okay, thank you. And I walk out and I'm like, well, that's already 50% down. We've got 2 options, a microtel and a Red Roof Inn. So I drive over to the other side of the interstate where they were, and I walk into the microtel first. I walk up to the lady, I say, hey, this might be a strange question, but you wouldn't still happen to have any rooms available, would you? And she goes, we actually have 1 room left. At this point, I'm like, oh, thank the Lord, I'm saved. Thank goodness. So I'm like, great. Would I be able to buy that room? And she's like, yeah. And I'm like, okay, I am under 21. I know a lot of places you have to be 21 or over to get a room. Is that still going to be okay? And she goes, how old are you? And I go, well, I'm 20. She's like, oh, that'll be fine. So I'm like, oh, we're in business. We're in business. So I'm like, okay. I pull out my card. I'm like, go to pay. I look, I'm like, oh, it's $180. Makes sense for the area. It's right next to like the park and stuff. So it's, you know, it makes sense why it's more expensive. It's a touristy area, but it's like, okay, pay for the room. I get the room. I air up the tire as great as possible, and I make the trek back to my Airbnb to grab all my stuff because it's still out there. And I'm like, if this tire blows any way there and back, I'm sunk. So I make it. It's about an hour later. I've got all my stuff. I grab some Taco Bell. I go to the hotel. I get my room, and I just collapse on the bed eating my Taco Bell because I'm like, this is insanity. And so, but I'm like, hey, I'm here. The tire might be flat in the morning, but I can just jack it up, put the donut on, and get it over to the Walmart. Because I've decided at this point I'm going to Walmart to get this tire fixed. So I sleep. I wake up. I go out to my car to check. Lo and behold, the tire still has air in it. How? It deflated during the day, but didn't during the night. I'm genuinely just... I want to know how that happened. Like... Both times the car wasn't moving, so it's not like that had a factor to it. Was it temperature? I don't know. But I'm like, okay, whatever. Maybe I didn't need the hotel room because it still has air, but I didn't want to risk it because you don't want to get stuck in the middle of nowhere with a flat tire. So I go to Walmart. I get it in. They're like, all right, we'll take a look at the tire and see where the leak is and stuff. It'll take about 20 to 25 minutes. I'm like, great, I'll look around Walmart for a few minutes. So I go out, looking around, I go back, they're like, all right, it's ready. And they say, so that tire had a valve stem leak on it. A valve stem leak on the brand new tire. So they fixed it. It only cost like $18. So I'm like, great. At this point also in the day, it's already almost 10. So the next day of the conference has already started. So I'm missing both first speakers on each day of the conference, but it's whatever. So I get it fixed. I get in the car. I go to the conference. Well, I checked out of the hotel. Go to the conference. Spend the rest of the second day at the conference. I'm like, okay. I'm going to walk out to the car, and I'm going to just hope and pray that the tire still has air in it. I walk out to the car. I look around my tires, and to my utter disbelief, the tire still had air in it. It was just as full as it was that morning when it got aired up. So like, it was great. They fixed it. Everything was fine. I was like, oh, thank the Lord. I get in the car and I go back to the Walmart to grab a snack or two for the drive tomorrow. I walk in and I see my friend, the greeter. I'm like, hey, how's it going? And I just caught up with her. I let her know what was happening. Found out her name is Kate, and asked if I could actually share that. But we chatted a bit, and she's very friendly, very friendly. So I just want to say right here, true MVP of the story is Kate, the Walmart greeter. She was super friendly, super nice, super helpful with letting me know about the tire place, and also like the stay away from Red Roof Inn, because honestly that probably would have been the first place I would have gone because it's like motel, but I'm glad she let me know. Super friendly, very nice. So I just want to say, Kate, if somehow you're watching this video, thank you so much for all the encouragement and little helpful tips you gave. You really made my struggling a little more bright and friendly, and it's just nice to see a warm smile and a friendly face while I was there. So thank you, Kate, for that. So the next morning, I get up and I make the drive home. Tires are all fine. Car makes it. I get in about 9 p.m., go to sleep, and I go to work the next day, and everything's fine. I'm back here now. I'm alive. The tires are still full without any sort of signs of leaks in them. And yeah, that's where I'm at now. Real quick, one more time, I just want to say shout out to Kate, the Walmart greeter. She is super nice. She's super friendly. She helped me out, gave me some great advice. Seriously, guys, if you're ever in the Cincinnati area or passing through Dry Ridge, Kentucky, pop down, stop at the Walmart, see if Kate's working. She's greeting the door, and say hi. I mean, she's just very friendly, and I'm so happy that I was able to run into her and she was able to give me some good advice. So seriously, and Kate, if you're somehow watching this, I know you asked about my channel when I thanked you and stuff. If you found it and you're watching this, once again, just thank you so much. You were a massive help and just an encouragement. So thank you.
You gave me a reason to appreciate Dry Ridge.
I think the moral of this story is, one, always be prepared. You know, be prepared for possibilities. Like, I didn't have my car jack, I didn't have my pressure gauge. I didn't have a lot of things I should have needed. Two, do your research. Had I done a little bit of sleuthing before I instantly went to calling a tow company, I would have seen that there was the Walmart right there where I could have replaced the tire and saved myself a lot of money and time. And number three, no matter what happens, don't forget to come at it with a sense of, it is what it is. How can I make the most of the situation? To be honest, I can proudly say I never lost my cool. I never got angry or too frustrated with any of it. I didn't just pout the whole time. I looked at it from a point of opportunity, like, okay, this happened. There's nothing I can do about it to change that it did. All I can do is try to fix the problem in the most fast and efficient way possible. And I also looked at it from a sense of adventure. I mean, this was my first time traveling on my own, and now I have a story to tell. And by the end of it, my whole outlook on it was, hey, at least I got a YouTube video, right? And finally, I think the moral is, always remember that there are kind people out there willing to help, as long as you just talk to them and you're friendly back. I mean, if you look at the friendly man who tried helping me out at the McDonald's, taking his granddaughter's car seat out of his truck just to see if he could have a car jack. I mean, he didn't have to do that. He could have just been like, nah, sorry, and gone back to his breakfast. But he didn't. He was very helpful. The people at all the places, while some might have in the long run not as been helpful as others, they were all still friendly and cordial. I mean, everyone was giving me a smile, you know, the people at Cracker Barrel, very friendly. People at the hotels, cordial, friendly, all very helpful. And lastly, especially Kate from Walmart. Very, very helpful, very friendly, very sweet. And so once again, I just want to say thank you, Kate, for that. And thank you for giving me a happy memory from Dry Ridge, Kentucky. And the last and certainly not least moral of the story is, take it from me. When you hear your tire go boom, pull into a McDonald's. At least you got food when your life's in jeopardy. Thank you.